many of you guys have ever been in a hurry? Anybody? Just me. Oh, just a few. Just me and Miss Ann and Violet. Okay, a couple. All right. Sandra. So we've all been in a hurry before, right? Rushing to get things done. I mean, we just got done with Christmas. See, the holiday season. I don't think there is that's the epitome of hurrying, right? Hurry to get things done. Hurry to, being in a rush. And sometimes it's nice just to kind of slow down, and, that's why I love here on Sundays, because it's, eventually I got to stop all the rushing, and I got to kind of calm down and settle down, and, we got to have church service. Which, by the way, my dad is here. He's in the house. So Vernon Lloyd's over there. He tried to sneak in. Yeah. He's sitting by Rolando. Pastor Rolando, make sure he'll get, you might have to, he'll get up and start dancing and stuff. You got to calm him down, yeah. If he gets out of line, you have my permission just to kind of calm him down. And, you might have to put your hands on his shoulders and push him down physically. Yeah. All right. No, I'm glad that my dad is here. So I want to talk to you guys, though, about when God is in a hurry. When is it that God is in a hurry? When is God in a hurry? Now, if you've been going to church for as long as I have, you've heard preachers like me get up and say, God's never in a hurry. And that's a good point. It's a fair point. Except in this one passage that I've found where Jesus, and it's the only passage I can find where Jesus is in a hurry. But there is. And I'm not going to give it away right now. Just I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to read it and find out. Because right now you're thinking, this guy is out of his mind. He's up there teaching us that God is in a hurry, and we all know that God is not in a hurry. He's trying to slow us down, waiting on God and all this. But there is one place where I find that God is in a hurry. And the story is of this dude. His name is Zacchaeus. How many have ever heard the story of Zacchaeus? All right, a few of us. Now, this is going back to Sunday school lessons, and I love these stories because I love, God just shows me new things with these stories. I thought about doing a series sometime, take me back to Sunday school and all these lessons and stuff I learned in Sunday school. But this dude named Zacchaeus. Now, first service had no idea what I was talking about here. Not this story about Zacchaeus, but they had no idea because when I used to go to children's church, we used to sing a song. And everybody in first service just looked at me like, you are out of your mind, dude. But the song went, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Nobody? No? Miss Ann? Miss Ann knows it? Miss Ann, you want to come up here and sing? We'll sing a duet. That would be something, wouldn't it? Me and Miss Ann just singing Zacchaeus. And talks about him climbing up a sycamore tree for the Lord he wanted to see. And how many have never heard that song before? All right. You guys consider yourself lucky. So, growing up as a kid, we'd sing that, and they'd talk about Zacchaeus, and I heard that story my whole life. And I kind of thought of Zacchaeus as this cute little guy, Oh, man, poor Zacchaeus. He's the victim. I can't believe those people wouldn't let him see Jesus. He had to climb up a sycamore tree. He had to climb up a tree, and just kind of thought, man, poor little Zacchaeus. But then as I got older and reading the story, that's not the case at all. Zacchaeus was he was a tax collector. He was like a gangster, In fact, if we were going to sit down and we were going to make Zacchaeus the movie, and the person to play Zacchaeus, who I think would be the perfect person? Joe Pesci. I think that would be the perfect guy. If you ever seen Goodfellas, you would know why. I cannot repeat those quotes in church. But, that's what Zacchaeus was. He was not a good guy. He was a bad guy. He was like a gangster. And he was not just a tax collector, but he was a chief tax collector. He was a chief tax collector. You guys, I'll switch to Joe Pesci. It's going to be weird, me preaching with Joe Pesci behind us. Everybody's looking at Joe Pesci. That's actually from My Cousin Vinny, though, which is a great movie. But he was the chief tax collector. Like, he was like the leader amongst all these thieves. Now, just to give you guys a little backstory on this is tax collectors were hired. They worked for the Roman government. The Roman government, they ruled over the Jewish people at this time. And they would go and they would recruit Jewish people, Jewish men, to become tax collectors. Now, they would go around and the Roman government would say, okay, you need to collect X amount of dollars for us from the Jewish people. Now, what the tax collectors were allowed to do, how they made their money, is they would add to it. So if the Roman government says, hey, you need to collect 20% from the Jewish people, then instead they would collect 30%, they would keep 10%. That's what they did. But when the Jewish people, when they became tax collectors, they were seen as non-Jews by the Jewish people. They were like excommunicated from the Jewish people. You were no longer Jewish. You were a non-Jew. People hated you. They despised you. And you think, well, why would anybody want to become a tax collector? Why? Because they were rich. They had money. Zacchaeus wasn't just poor, wee little man. This was a guy, he was like a millionaire. He had like a mansion, a house overlooking the sea. Like, he had like fancy cars, throwing parties every night. Like, he had the best of the best. That was his territory too. He ruled over that territory. But they didn't like him. He was hated. These tax collectors, they were like stealing grandma's pension, that they were taking food off the table that I was going to feed my kids. They were thieves. They were bad guys. They were hated. They were disguised. And Zacchaeus, he didn't care because he was infamous. Everybody knew who he was. They feared him. But he didn't care because he had money. But he heard the rumors. The word on the street was that Jesus was coming to town. Now, he knew who Jesus was. Because Zacchaeus, growing up in Jewish culture, he read the Torah, he read the prophets, he knew the coming of the Messiah. And he had heard, by this time, the word on the street about Jesus was getting out, and this guy, he claims to be the Messiah. And Zacchaeus, part of him was like, I want to check this guy out. Maybe he was even like, this guy's coming on my territory, on my turf. I want to see what this guy's all about. But he heard about this. So he hears Jesus is coming, and he just wants to get a glimpse of Jesus. And that's where we pick up this story, and it's found in Luke chapter 19, starting with verse 1. If you have your Bibles, you can turn to that. If you have it on your phone, you can go to that too. Or you can look up here on the Sky Bible we have for your reading enjoyment, reading pleasures. But you have to trust that John is putting the right stuff up there. You never know with that guy. Verse 1, it says, on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus had to pass through Jericho. There lived a very wealthy man named Zacchaeus who supervised all the tax collectors. He was over them all. He probably started off got recruited as a young teenager, and then maybe he was a bit of a prodigy. Maybe he was the assistant to a tax collector, and he worked up the ranks, and then he was a tax collector, and then he became the supervisor of all tax collectors. So he worked his way up. And he was very eager to see Jesus and kept trying to get a look at him through the massive crowd. Since Zacchaeus was a short man and couldn't see over the heads of the people, he ran on ahead of everyone and climbed up a blossoming fig tree to get a glimpse of Jesus as he passed by. Now, I read this in the Passion Translation, and it's not a secret if you've been coming here. You know I'm a big fan of the Passion Translation. But reading this, when I got to this point of it, I was kind of taken back because, one, how many know the story of Zacchaeus? What kind of tree did he climb? The sycamore tree, right? It's in the song. We know that. Sycamore tree. And so I had to Google it, and I was like, is a sycamore tree a fig tree? And I said, yes, it is. Now, Zacchaeus did what a lot of us do in our regular lives. It says that he ran. It says that he ran ahead of everyone. Now, how many, I don't know, is that feedback because I'm getting too close to the speakers? Is that why? Maybe, maybe not. He ran ahead of everyone. And then he climbed up a tree. Now, for a lot of us, that's what we do in our lives because we think we got to run fast enough, we got to climb high enough, because we got to make up for our shortcomings. We got to make up for the things that we don't do right. And we need to get ahead. I mean, that's pretty much what culture tells us is you got to get ahead. You got to run faster. You got to climb higher. You got to be better. You got to be stronger. You got to get ahead. And that's what Zacchaeus does to get a glimpse of Jesus. Now, he climbs up the sycamore tree, or he climbs up this fig tree. Now, this is where it really hit me. And I love it. That's why I love these old stories that I learned as a kid, because God shows me something new. So he climbs up this fig tree. Now, the fig tree in our life, it represents something. And what I believe that the fig tree is representing is our shortcomings, those things that we try to make up for by our running, by our climbing. We try to make up for it by our singing, by our doing. I gotta do more. I should be doing more. I did this. I messed up over here in this area, and so now I need to make up for it over in this area. Oh, I wasn't here at church last week, so now I got to get here early, and I got to make sure the chairs are all set up right, and I got to make sure everything looks good. I haven't given in the offering in a while, and now I got to make up for that. Or you know what, man? I got stuff going on in my life, so I got to come to church, and I don't want anybody knowing about that, so I'm going to cover it up. I'm gonna sing louder, and there's no way they would think I'm messed up if I'm singing this loud. And we try to make up for those things, and so we climb those problems, and we run faster, and we climb higher. There's another place where I see the fig trees, though, and it's in Genesis. I didn't give John these scriptures for this, but it's in Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. There's a place where a fig tree comes to play, and it's here where Adam and Eve, they eat from the tree, the forbidden tree, the tree of knowledge, tree of good and evil, and they eat from it, and they realize, they start to know, they start to understand and see their shortcomings. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm naked. And they start to cover up. What do they cover up with? Fig leaves. It says they took fig leaves and they sewed them together to make clothes. They took the fig. So the fig tree is not just a representation of those things that we try to overcome and try to climb and run faster, but it's also those things that we try to hide behind. What is it that you're hiding? We all have fig trees in our lives. It's just, how do we deal with it? Do we try to take it and hide behind it? Do we try to overcome it by doing better, singing louder, doing more stuff? What do we do? Now, there's another time there's a fig tree here, and this is has become a pretty big topic in the Lloyd household with it, is because in Mark chapter 11, it's also found in Matthew, the only time I see where Jesus curses anything, the only thing I can remember offhand, and I didn't think of this until earlier this morning, is Jesus in Mark chapter 11, there comes to a place where he's walking with the disciples, and he curses a fig tree. He curses a fig tree because it's not bearing fruit. And I took it as, I don't know, it just kind of hit me this morning. I took it as, you know what? It's a way of Jesus saying, those things that you're hiding behind, those shortcomings that you're trying to overcome, you don't need those anymore. Because I'm here, and all you have to do is hand those over to me. I can't wait for the day, and I believe that Fairlawn, I believe here that we have created that atmosphere where you can come here and you can share where you messed up. You can, I was doing so good, but you know what? I haven't drank for 8 years, but New Year's Eve I was all by myself and I was lonely, and I went down to the liquor store and I messed up. Things that we'd normally hide. You know, I just, my family. Like it's tearing my marriage apart because I'm addicted to pornography and I just can't stop watching it, and then it's causing problems between me and my wife. That's the kind of atmosphere I want to create here. That's what kind of atmosphere we need to have here at Fairlawn, where we can take those, and we don't have to hide behind these fig trees. We don't have to hide behind these leaves and put this stuff in front of us and not be ourselves, but have an atmosphere where, hey, I messed up and I need help. And I believe that's the kind of atmosphere that we are creating here, and that's why I love Celebrate Recovery so much. You ever think, man, I'm in this by myself? I dare you, come to Celebrate Recovery and hear some of those testimonies. People just being so blunt and so honest about areas of their lives. That's the kind of church I want to be a part of. Let's read on. Verse 4, he ran on ahead, and everyone climbed up a blossoming fig tree to get a glimpse of Jesus as he passed by. When Jesus got to that place, he looked up into the tree and said, Zacchaeus. What did he say after that? Hurry down. It's the only place in the Bible where I ever find Jesus is in a hurry. He calls him by name. Zacchaeus is probably like, how does he know my name? He says, Zacchaeus, hurry down. Hurry down, for I must stay at your house today. You know the only thing that God is in a hurry to do is to stop you from striving, to stop you from stressing, to stop you from trying to save yourself. Some of us, we've been trying to save ourselves for years, and it's not working out, but I don't even know why we keep doing it. But we keep trying to, maybe this time, maybe 2022 will be the year that I finally save myself. And then we mess up again, and we get so discouraged. What's God in a hurry to do? He's in a hurry to get you to stop striving, to stop trying to do it on your own. He says, I must stay at your house today. So we scurried down the tree. I don't know what scurried, I have no idea what that looks like. Pee-wee, where's Pee-wee? Pee-wee, you got your new shoes on? Show us a little bit about what scurrying is. You've been showing off those brand new New Balances. Show us some scurrying. No? Okay. I don't know scurrying. I think like when I think of scurrying, I think like this. So that's how I think Zacchaeus was. Like little footsteps, but fast footsteps. That's like scurrying. I don't know. That's my definition of it. I don't really know if that's accurate or not. But yeah, that's so. It says, so he scurried down the tree and found himself face to face with Jesus. Some of you face to face with Jesus this morning. He's revealing some stuff to you. By the way, this was not what I was planning on speaking on. This was not going to be the first Sunday of 2022 was not going to be on this. It's something that just events took place, and I really didn't know what I was going to speak on until yesterday afternoon. And I went in and actually went and took communion by myself, and I felt like the Lord said, share this. And maybe you find yourself face to face with Jesus right now, and he's revealing some things to you, and you're like, man, I have been trying to do it on my own. I have been hiding behind the fig trees. I have been trying to compensate by running faster, climbing higher. And then verse 8, it says, verse 7. It says, as Jesus left to go with Zacchaeus, many in the crowd complained. Look at this. Of all the people to have dinner with, he's going to eat in the house of a crook. So people start putting Jesus down, right? People in the crowd that were following Jesus, that wanted to see Jesus, they start putting him down. Why? Because he's going to hang out with a sinner. Now, here's the thing. We're like, oh, those bad people, how dare them. I don't know that we'd be any different. Like, that guy took my grandpa's pension, and now Jesus is going to go to his house. He's going to eat food and sit at his table and eat food that he bought, that he stole. He stole that money from me to buy the food, and Jesus is going to sit there. So I get it. I think it's easy for us to be like, oh, man. But that's where we got to remember, we hate sin, but we love the sinner. And it's so hard. It's so hard to separate sin from the sinner. And we group them together. It's like, how dare them? And I can't believe they let that person go to Farallon. I can't believe that. They just walk in there and sing those songs like they done nothing wrong. And you know what Zacchaeus this whole time, you know what he's thinking? Why do you think, this is what I think. Why does Zacchaeus think Jesus is coming to his house? I think because from this little narrative that Dr. Luke has given us, most likely Zacchaeus is thinking, good thing I climbed that tree. I impressed Jesus with my tree climbing skills. Yeah. I'm like a professional tree climber. Maybe he saw me running, and he saw the speed that I had with my brand new white New Balance shoes. And he's thinking that it's because he climbed a tree. But that's not why Jesus is going to his house at all. The reason Jesus is going to his house that day is not because Zacchaeus climbed a tree, but it's because Jesus is going to climb a tree. Jesus is going to hang on the cross. For who? For Zacchaeus. Now, we're not told the details about what happens in the discussions that happens where Jesus sits down with Zacchaeus and sits at his table. I can imagine Zacchaeus starting to call up his friends, his tax collector friends. Hey, man, you won't believe this, but Jesus, the guy that claims to be the Messiah, he's coming to come over. It's a big party. Jesus is going to be there. Probably had the best food, laid out the best spread, maybe. And what do you think Jesus spoke to Zacchaeus about? We don't know. I believe Dr. Luke, the Apostle Luke, I believe that he left this out for a reason, because if he didn't, there would be preachers like me that would try to come up with this formula. And that would be the formula we use to go around and the sermon we use to share with sinners to change their lives, to change their heart. Oh, this is how Jesus did this sermon. This is what we need to do, and this is how we need to lay it out. But Dr. Luke, he leaves all that out. Luke leaves all that out. Why? Because it wasn't about what he said, but it was about the time that he spent with him. The time that he spent with Jesus sitting at his table. Why? Because it's not I can get up here and I can tell you guys I can say, okay, guys, here's the 10 Commandments. Let's memorize these 10 Commandments. Let's make sure we get them, and maybe you'll go out and maybe you'll do some of them for a little bit. But then the problem is with that is if we start with the 10 Commandments, then the next Sunday, I got to follow that up with the 318 other laws that are in the Bible. I was joking with the first service. I said, imagine if I put that out on the sign. Come this Sunday, Pastor Jimmy's going to speak on the 318 or whatever it is, laws that are in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. And this place would be empty. My wife wouldn't even be here. Some of you might be just like, oh man, that's going to be a short sermon for Jimmy. Just 318 points. The thing is, it's not about telling you a bunch of laws and telling you a bunch of rules. And by the way, I don't know that that's ever worked for anybody. That's why we have a prison system and a law system, because people not following the laws. Jesus didn't sit down with Zacchaeus and say, okay, here's the 10 Commandments. Zacchaeus already knew them. He grew up in a Jewish home. He didn't do any of that. What did he do? He spent time with Jesus. He spent time with Jesus. And everybody else looked at that and said, how dare him? You know what? If we want to be the church that follows Jesus' example, then we need to be the church that other Christians are talking about and going, oh man, you don't want to go to Farallon. They got sinners over there at Farallon. You better believe it. I don't care what the lifestyle is. I don't care they are accepted here. Now, we're not saying it's okay to sin. Let's be clear. But what we're saying is we love the sinner, and we love, because why? Because, well, I'm Zacchaeus. You're Zacchaeus. We fail to realize that that table, well, that's our table. And Jesus went and sat at his table. Jesus didn't say, hey, Zacchaeus, why don't you come back with me and the 12 disciples, and we'll go and hang out we've got this picnic table over here. And no, Jesus went into his house. He sat at his table. And that's what he's calling us to do, is to sit at their table. It's not all about just, if we could just get them to 3003 Rhode Island Avenue. No, he's called us to go and sit at their table, to go to them. And then he goes on and he says, in verse 8, Zacchaeus was amazed over his gracious visit to his home and joyous welcome Jesus. Zacchaeus stood in front of the Lord and said, half of all that I own I'll give to the poor. It's a pretty big deal. Half of everything I own is give to the poor. And then he says, and Lord, if I have cheated anyone. Now, if I was there, I would have been like, Zacchaeus, what do you mean if you've cheated? You've cheated everybody. Now, this just came out of Zacchaeus' heart. This just poured out of him. Nobody told him to say this. But he says, if I've cheated anyone, I promise to pay them back 4 times as much. That's 400%. It's 400%. Now, according to the law, according to the Jewish law, the rule is if you stole from somebody, you had to pay them back, and you had to pay them back plus 10%. So if I took $100 from Connor, and now I got to repay him, I repay him $110. What Zacchaeus is saying, I'm going to repay Connor $400. 400% of what I've taken. You know why we preach grace here? You know why we're big on grace here? Because I don't want to see a 10% change when people walk through those doors. I want to see a 400% change. I want to see supernatural change. Change that you don't have to tell somebody to do this or tell somebody to do that, but they just spend time with Jesus and say, I want to do this. Because there's something about that relationship. His supernatural change takes place. And then, check this out. Jesus said to him, your repentance shows that today life has come to you in your household. Now, Zacchaeus didn't have to sit there and tell Jesus all the things that he's done wrong and all that stuff. There was a change in his heart. And then he says this, and that you are a true son of Abraham. Now, to us, this is like, oh, this is cute. You know, we all know the song. Father Abraham had many sons. Oh, yeah. No. This was a big deal. In fact, if other people heard Jesus say this, they would be horrified. This would be a big deal. Why? Because this is probably the first time another Jewish man actually sat down at Zacchaeus' table with him and fellowshiped with him, because he was cast aside. He was no longer considered a Jew because he was a tax collector. And now here Jesus is saying, you are a son of Abraham. And there's some of you are here this morning, this afternoon, and you feel like I don't belong here because of the decisions you made, maybe because of the lifestyle that you live, and you're like, I just don't belong here. And I want to tell you, you are wrong. This is right where you belong, right here in this family. Maybe somebody's told you you don't want to have anything to do with those church people. You don't want to have anything to do with those Christians. Well, Pastor Jimmy, you just don't know what I've done. I don't need to know what you've done. But I know right now, you can be face to face with Jesus. And when you do, that change just comes. Rolando, you can come up here and you can play something. Raul's going to come with them. It's going to get super emotional, so just get ready. You know what? Nobody had to tell Zacchaeus what to do. You know all he did? He responded. You know, that's what Jesus is calling us to do. He wants to spend time with you. He wants to hang out with you. He wants to meet you where you are. He's not saying, oh yeah, you need to fix this in your life and then fix that in your life. And then once you get there, you need to, you stop hanging out with so-and-so, oh, you need to get rid of this. You need to and then, then I'll spend some time with you. No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I'm going to meet you right where you're at. And then after you spend time with him, then you respond. And when you respond with supernatural change. 400% change. That's what, here going into 2022, that's what God's called us to do. He's called us to respond. Oh, God, how am I ever going to be able to do that? Same way Zacchaeus did. Spent time with Jesus face to face. You don't know how you respond? You watch Jesus. Watch how he forgives you. Watch how he heals you. Watch how he changes you. Watch how he spends time with you. And then respond. If you look over the history of the church in the last 100 years, the biggest time of growth within the church is when there's plagues. Because it's been the church, historically, it's been the church who runs towards those plagues. When everybody else is running away, it's the church that runs towards the hurting and the sick people. Look it up. It's not hard to find church history. He hasn't called us to fight these cultural wars we get wrapped up in. He's called us to respond. That's what we are. That's first responders. That's what we are. We run towards the hurting.